Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about vertical root fracture, cracked tooth and endo perio lesion. Now first let's talk about vertical root fracture. Complete or incomplete break in buccolingual direction is called as vertical root fracture. So there is a breakdown in buccolingual direction. Now what is the difference between vertical root fracture and cracked tooth syndrome is example, this is a tooth that has a minor fracture here. You will not even find out in general, but in situations where you bite on any hard object or a cold object, even when you remove the object, because of the flow of the um, because of the activation of A delta fibers, there'll be lot of pain. Okay, in simple to say, there is a crack in this tooth. So if you see, I'm telling that there is a crack here, right? So this portion and this portion is actually like this. So what happens in cracked tooth is there's a high chance of bacterial colonization in between the two broken parts. You have to make sure that there is no bacterial accumulation in order to prevent further damage. Okay. Now coming back to the vertical root fracture. To diagnose the vertical root fracture, 3 X-rays are taken at 45 degrees, 90 degrees and 110 degrees. So next is cracked tooth syndrome. I have already explained about it. Break or fracture of the crown extending subgingivally. Now coming to vertical root fracture, most common in endodontically treated teeth. If fracture is diagnosed, X-rays are taken. Gutta percha is inserted to diagnose the exact point of fracture. Okay. Now the test that is used to identify, let it be vertical root fracture or vertical root fracture, we know that we take 3 X-rays, and for cracked tooth, what we do is through X-rays you can see, and also through staining of the tooth or bite test or applying any cold fluid. So those all are the different kinds of tests. Bite test, pain on biting an hard object or a cotton. So you can just take a Q-tip and which has cotton and try to keep it near the broken part. So like I told you, there are two kinds of fibers. We have discussed about it in the previous classes. If you have missed it, I'll link it in the description below, where I have explained difference between alpha delta fibers and also C fibers. So I've explained that A delta fiber, is nothing but it causes a very acute pain. Like for example, suppose you touch any sharp object, that pain is due to A delta fibers, whereas C fibers is something like you experience sunburn, so immediately you won't have any problems. Later you might notice redness in your hands, you might notice it being painful, you might notice a dull ache. That is due to C fibers. Okay. Now coming to what are the diagnostic tests for cracked tooth. First is transillumination, next is methylene blue, bite test, cold test and EPT, that is electrical pulp testing, so as to know whether the pulp is vital or not. It will let us know whether there is any necrosis in the pulp or is it still vital. Then we can take radiographs, they are more accurate, and vertical root fractures are detected mainly through the radiographs by taking it in 3 angles, and ultrasound is another method. So cracked tooth cannot be permanently reunited. So what we can do is, basically here there is a high chance of bacterial accumulation. We can prevent that. How do we prevent this? How do we prevent this? By stabilizing teeth. That is, you give orthobands. After 2 weeks, you notice that if symptoms goes down, you just give full coverage crown. But if the symptoms still persist, then you go for root canal treatment followed by a crown. Okay, and if the prognosis is poor, you do extraction. Okay, vertical root fracture, when you observe in radiograph, you see that there is halo type of radiolucency. Okay, so how do you treat? First, make sure that you can stop the bacterial accumulation. And how do you do that? You do ortho treatment by giving ortho bands for 2 weeks, and later if it subsides, then what do? You give a full coverage crown. But if it still persists, then you go for RCT followed by a crown. Now coming to Endo Perio lesions. How do pulp and periodontium communicate? So here in the first step, you can see first diagram is primary endo, secondary perio lesion. Means first thing what you notice is there is caries. Okay, so it's primarily endo. Then because of that, you can see there is a periapical cyst, and due to which it is causing some damage to the surrounding periodontal ligament. There is here you can see this and this. Okay, so it's primarily endo, secondary perio. Now primarily perio, secondary endo means, see here, first there is pocket depth which is causing damage, and then next you have endo problems also. True combined lesion is both caries is there and also pocket is there, so it is both perio and endo problem. Okay, now, so how do pulp and periodontium communicate? By the way of tubules, accessory canals. So suppose due to accessory canals there might be any damage, and furcation canals, apical foramen. Endodontic disease can cause periodontal disease, but periodontal disease usually does not cause endodontic problems. So endo diseases can cause perio, endo disease can cause perio disease, but perio disease does not cause endo disease. Okay, periodontal treatment can affect pulpal health. So periodontal treatment can affect pulpal health because periodontal treatment can result in bacterial penetration into the dentinal tubules, because here bacteria can penetrate into dentinal tubules. Okay, now which can cause thermal sensitivity and subsequently pulpitis, so it can lead to pulpitis. So here, like I told you, it's a primary endo, secondary perio. Here it's primary perio, pocket depth is there, then secondary endo, and here there is caries and pocket depth, so it's an endoperio lesion. So about endoperio lesion, we have studied that endo diseases can cause perio disease, but perio disease does not cause endo disease. And but the treatment of during the periodontal treating a periodontal disease, it can affect pulpal health because bacteria can penetrate into dentinal tubules and cause pulpitis. Okay, and cracked tooth syndrome, the main problem what happens is there might be accumulation of bacteria between the pieces. So how do you prevent it? By ortho treatment, and after 2 weeks, if the pain subsides, then you can just go for the full coverage crown. But if the pain persists, then you go for RCT and then crown. If the prognosis is very poor, you go for extraction. Vertical root fracture in radiograph, you can see it as a halo type of radiolucency. What are the different diagnostic tests for the cracked tooth? Transimulation, illumination, methylene blue, bite test. Bite test means you just bite on a hard thing like cotton, and then you can experience extreme pain. Then you can suspect vertical root fracture or cracked tooth syndrome, because of the A delta fibers you experience very much acute pain because of the fluid disbalance in the dentinal tubules. Okay, radiographs and then ultrasound are more accurate. Now, vertical root fracture are mostly common in endodontically treated tooth. If fracture is diagnosed, X-rays are taken and gutta percha is inserted to diagnose the exact point of fracture. And vertical root fracture can be seen in buccolingual direction. And when you the main easy and accurate method to diagnose is by taking X-rays in 3 angles: 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and 110 degrees. So that's it for today's class. I hope you have enjoyed, and in case you have enjoyed, please do share and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Thank you.